Hi guys, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time coming across my channel, my name is Nancy. In today's class, we're going to be learning how to make this trendy BUBA crop top. And the fabric I used in making this top is called an African print, and I made use of 1.5 yards. If this is something you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let's get started. So for the front piece of this blouse, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into two. Now, the first step is to roll the starting line, which is also called the shoulder line. So the next step is to take the measurements you have from the center back neck all the way down to your desired sleeve length, just the way it is in this illustration. So now I'm going to place my tape measure from the center of the folded fabric directly on the shoulder line to mark 29 inches. And then I'll go ahead to add a folding allowance of 2 inches, which would make it 31 inches altogether. After this, the next thing I'm going to do is to mark the neck measurements. So from the center folding, I'm going to mark a neck width of 3 inches and a neck depth of 3 inches to connect. So for a plus size person, you should mark a neck depth of 4 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead to connect 2 points together to form a curved neckline. So from the sleeve length, I'm going to come down here by 1 inch to connect these new points to meet the neck width. So from the shoulder line, I'm going to place my tape measure to mark my desired blouse length. First of all, you need to know what your shoulder to waistline measurement is. For me, it is 15 inches. Now, I'm going to use that 15 inches and add extra 2 inches to that. That will make it 17 inches so that the top isn't too short. Once it's 17 inches, I'm going to go ahead to add extra 2 inches folding allowance to the bottom, which would make it 19 inches altogether. So make sure you do the same thing using your own shoulder to waist measurement. Now to get the sleeve opening, all you need to do is to place your tape measure on the shoulder line again all the way down to mark your bust point measurement. For me, it's 10 inches, so I marked it here, and then I'm just going to draw a straight line across the points I marked. Now from the sleeve length, I'm going to draw a line all the way down to meet the bust point line, which is serving as the sleeve opening. And then on this line here, that's the bust point line, I'm going to be placing my bust measurement divided by 4. So for ease, I'm going to be adding extra 2 inches allowance to the bust measurement. And then I'll go ahead to mark it here. Now I'm going to extend this new point all the way down to the hem of the blouse. Now, this is going to be the armhole area, and to sew this conveniently, you need to make a little curve here to connect both points together like I've done here. Now, the next thing to do is to cut out the front piece of the blouse, following the direction of the white lines. Now, for the shoulder line, you're just going to add half of an inch stitching allowance to the top. So you're not cutting directly on the white line that is slanted. You need to add half of an inch stitching allowance to the top, and then you go ahead to cut the neckline. Now, the next thing we are going to do is to place this front piece on our fabric to cut out the back piece. So the difference between the front piece and the back piece is just the neckline. So this is the fabric for the back piece. I've gone ahead to fold the fabric into two like I did for the front. Now I'm going to place the front piece directly on the back piece, making sure that the center fold of the front piece is placed directly on the center fold of the fabric at the bottom because there is no zipper allowance. So for the neckline of the back piece, all you have to do is to draw a straight line to indicate the neck width at the top here, and then you can go ahead to mark your neck depth. My neck depth is just 1 inch for the back, and then I'll connect it to the neck width. I'll go ahead to trim out the neck width here. So after this, the next thing is to just trace out every other part using the front piece. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is to cut out the facing. This is for just the front piece. Remember that there is a slit around the neckline. So I'm just going to mark 3 inches from the neck depth here to slit the center fold all the way down to this point I marked. So the slit is about 3 inches. For a plus size person, you can make it 4 inches or 5 inches. It just depends on you. All right. Once you've done that, the next thing is to get a different part of your fabric, and then you fold it into two. Then you place the center fold of the front piece directly on the center fold of the little piece you have here to trim out the neckline exactly the way it is, and to also trim out this part of the shoulder here and make sure that you also create the center slits. So this is basically how the facing for the front piece should be. Now let's work on the back piece. For the back piece, we're also going to be cutting out the facing for the neckline. So I folded a little piece as well, and I placed the back piece directly on it to cut out the neckline, to trim out some part of the shoulder, and then just cut out the facing itself. So once you've done this, the next thing you need to do is to place the facing directly on, that's the right side of the facing directly on the right side of the back piece here, just like you see me doing. Then you head over to your sewing machine to stitch the neckline by half of an inch following the direction of the chalk. After stitching, make sure to top stitch the same area so that it relaxes well. So you're also going to place the facing of the front piece around the neckline to stitch by half of an inch following the direction of the chalk. Now when you get to the center of the V shape, you're going to raise the machine footer up, then you're going to continue stitching this way. So I'm going ahead to stitch the facing for the front and to also stitch the facing for the back. So now you're going to place the right side of the front piece directly on the right side of the back piece so that you can stitch the shoulders together properly. So what you're going to do here is to align the shoulders together around the neck width as well to the sleeve length. Then you bring the facing for the back piece towards the front, and then you go ahead to pin this together. Head over to the sewing machine to stitch all the way down to the sleeve by half of an inch. On this side as well, you push the facing of the back piece towards the front, you pin together, you head over to the sewing machine to stitch all the way by half of an inch to the sleeve. So guys, after stitching the shoulders together, this is how it should be. You can go ahead to place hemming gum to hold down the facing properly, or you just tack it. It just depends on you. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to stitch the sides by half of an inch following the direction of the chalk. And after stitching the sides, this is how it should be. Now the next step is to notch around the armhole. So I gave it like 3 notches so that by the time I turn the blouse to the right side of the fabric, the area around the armhole would be well balanced. So what I mean is that the area around the armhole will be flat and not squeezed. So guys, make sure you give your blouse a quick press before going ahead with the next step. Now, the next thing here is to mark the folding allowance you added to the sleeve. I added 2 inches, so I marked 2 inches here, and then I'm going to use this point I marked as a guide in folding the sleeve opening here. And then I would use my pressing iron to give it a quick press so that it holds it properly. After this, I would fold in the edges of the sleeve opening inward by half of an inch, and I would head over to my sewing machine to stitch all round. Now on this part as well, I'll do exactly the same thing. I would mark 2 inches, fold it inside as well, and then use my pressing iron to give it a quick press. Now I'm going to fold the edges in by half of an inch to stitch all around the sleeve opening. After that, I would also do the same for the hem. I added 2 inches folding allowance, so I marked it here, and then I would use that point I marked as a guide in folding the hem of the blouse. Now I'm going to use my pressing iron to hold the fold properly, and then I would head over to the sewing machine to stitch the edges by folding it in by half of an inch inward like I've done here. So guys, after stitching the sleeve opening, this is how it should be, and after stitching the hem as well, this is how it should be. So this is a final look and it's very easy to make. You should give it a try. So you can actually style this top in your own way. But in my next tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how I made the short knicker that I used to wear this top. It came out really nice. And one special thing about that shirt is that I'll be teaching you how to make a jogger's waistband without having to cut a separate waistband. So please turn on your notification bell so you don't miss my next tutorial.